Success isn't for the chosen few, it's for those who choose to show up, take action, and never back down. This is the Empower Entrepreneur, hosted by Rohit Soni, airing across 185 countries, 26 plus TV networks, and 100 plus podcast stations. You've heard the strategies, you've seen the mindset. Now it's time to execute. I'll see you next week, every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern. Go, build, dominate. Until next time, stay empowered. So, hello everyone, welcome back to the Empower Entrepreneur TV show. This is your host, Rohit Soni, and today I'm with a very special guest. But before I start, I want to do a very quick introduction of that, right? So, today on the Empower Entrepreneur, we are joined by Dr. Lisa Hale, an executive leadership advisor and founder of Hale Leadership. Dr. Hale works with CEOs, founders, and executive teams at the highest levels, guiding through complex, high-stakes decisions where cost of being wrong is both personal and structural. Her work focuses on what she calls leadership decision architecture, a disciplined approach to understanding how decisions actually play out inside organizations and why they often break down between intent and execution. With over 2 decades of experience across private equity backed companies, founder led organizations, national security environments, and global enterprises, she helps leaders clarify trade offs, pressure test assumptions, and ensure strategy turns into results. Today, we are diving into a critical topic why businesses stall not because of bad strategy, but because decisions don't translate into consistent action. In saying that, and before I get her on the stage, I just want to let you know sometimes our decision defines who we are. It could be going on bike ride, it could be starting a new business, it could be telling that friend what they're wrong about. Any decision we make is a stepping stone on what's going to happen next, right? And making a mistake or making a decision that's not good for your business not just affects you, but it affects your personal, professional, both lives. So in saying that, it's critical for us to do and make the right decisions, not just as business, but in life, with the right people, with the right mentor, with the right coach. And today with Lisa, we'll uncover how this can happen in a right way. But on top of that, how the top level executives make decisions, right? In saying that, I want to introduce my guest for today, Lisa Hale. Hi, Lisa, how are you doing?
Hi, Rohit. It's so great to be here. And thank you for that incredible introduction. One thing I really noted is that you connected the way that people make decisions when they're leading organizations and where those decisions kind of filter out in ways that we don't expect when we make them. You connected that right up to the concept, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I really love that because it's really true. If you are a great decision maker and maybe missing the implications of your decisions somewhere a couple of orders out from where you're standing, that will affect you at home and in your personal life as well as in the boardroom. So that's a really great point you started up.
Absolutely, Lisa. It's all about, making those right choices. And sometimes one choice is the difference between someone being where they want to be versus where they are not.
Right.
Right. In saying that, I want to give the stage to you right now. Before we take a deep dive into the topic, if you can share with us how you started your journey and a little bit about you.
It's easy. Hindsight is 2020, as we all have heard. And for sure, that's true about me. I grew up in a family business. I grew up with a busy CFO and CEO as parents. And we also lived with one of my older sisters who was a partner in a law firm. I mean, these were all movers and shakers. And so I've been kind of around leadership and business my whole life. And starting early on, every job I took, I ended up in a leadership role. But nonetheless, I didn't think of myself in that way. I just thought, I'm really interested in how decisions get made and the implications they have on countries. And so I ended up doing a doctoral program at Northwestern University on the decision making that heads of state were making around the politics and economics and the embedded integrated systems and how they fit inside the world and how world organizations were impacting them, plus their own, people around them, and did a lot of research on that and wrote up my dissertation. And then I ended up immediately in a leadership role at Los Alamos National Lab. So that's kind of was my trajectory. And there came a certain point a couple decades ago where I decided that I wanted to be serving a multitude of clients and working with them directly. And that launched Focused Leadership Consulting and then Hale Leadership. So that's kind of how it came about.
Yeah, and it's our journey, right? It's our ups and downs. It's the people who surround us, right? That breaks us. Pretty simple, right? In
Right.
saying that, let's take a deeper dive into our topic, right? You talk about the gap between decisions and results, right? What does that look like inside growing organization like mine, anyone else's?
Yeah. It looks surprisingly normal at first. The leadership team might have a meeting, everyone discusses the strategy, smart questions get asked, the CEO pressure tests the thinking. Even if it's a small team or if it's a very big team, it doesn't matter. The same process happens. And everyone might leave believing, okay, we're aligned, we're on the same page. And then the decision hits the organization. And I've experienced it even in my company. I never got bigger than, maybe 8 people, but I might make a decision with, my board of advisors at the leadership decision, level, and then communicate it, I thought, very effectively to the rest of my team. And I think that they know what to do and how to execute it, but then execution looks different than I intended. And the more layers of an organization you have, the more verticals you have, the more complex and the more proliferated and exponential those impacts are, right? So that's where things start to drift. For example, a product line that's profitable, somebody might decide we need to nix it, it's unsustainable, even if it's profitable, and another one is pushed up the priority list. But that message doesn't filter. And so sales interprets it one way because they're trying to make the quarter, and operations interprets it a different way because they're trying not to break delivery, or finance protects margins, or what have you. And nobody thinks they're resisting the strategy. They're just protecting what they're under the most pressure about themselves, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I completely agree with it, right? Sometimes, it's within the organization, right, to see what's working and what's not, and what's taking it to the next level, right, and find the gaps right in front of them, which they have not addressing, right? And
Yeah.
how does this type of misalignment quietly slow down growth and performance?
Well, the interesting, if I were going to point to one thing in particular, it's that at the leadership team meeting level, the strategy gets put in place and they think that the implementation plan is put in place with every contingency considered. But very often when they're deciding it at that level, they may not have enough line of sight into how the execution is really literally going to get done. And that's fair, right? Because the COO doesn't need to know how, I don't know, the head of fleets or the head of mechanical operations is doing their job. The COO just needs to know that it's getting done. But there's a missing link when the specific impact of those decisions isn't identified, and the trade-offs that the teams are going to have to make at those frontline levels aren't identified in advance. It's not possible to identify all of them in advance, but to be aware that there are going to be trade-offs that we can't see when we make the decision is really critical, because then we can set up a process by which those trade-offs get surfaced really quickly and that they get decided in alignment with the strategy. Most organizations don't do that because they think that strategy setting is productive. They think we need a new direction or we need an innovation, but the strategy itself is usually not the issue. It's usually what's happening at different parts of the organization where they're making trade-offs that we as leaders don't know about when they're making them. And then we don't find out about them until after the results have already hit. And by then, it's having a more negative impact than it needed to.
Got it. Yep. And again, there are a lot of things that affect and create negative impact in our organization.
Right.
But for now, we have to run into a quick break. But when we come back, we'll talk about the exact negative impact on what could be and how leadership itself sometimes becomes the bottleneck. Okay. So we'll see after this quick break, and I'll see you right back. As a coach or a consultant, your focus should be on transforming lives, not struggling to get clients. That's where my company Amplify Media comes in to help you not just scale your business, but to consistently give you the revenue that your business deserves. We actually build a done-for-you lead generation acquisition system that brings in clients consistently so that you don't have to worry about where the next client is coming in. You focus on the most important thing that is scaling your business and impacting your own coaching clients. From high impact marketing and scroll stopping content to expert funnel creation, we take your business from point A to point B with precision. Coaches and consultants worldwide trust the company. We have over 277 plus clients, case studies all around the world, help tons and tons of businesses scale. So your next level is waiting. Let's make your brand unforgettable and visit the website today. I would love to offer you a free strategy session to share with you how we can help scale your business. Thank you. So hello everyone, welcome back to the Empowered Entrepreneur TV show. This is your host Rohit Soni. I'll have my guest on the stage again, which we were having quite a discussion regarding leadership and decision making. Lisa, in this session, I want to talk to you about one of the key mistakes, right?
Yeah.
And leadership becomes the bottleneck. You mentioned a period where your own business wasn't scaling because decision depended on you. What did you learn from that experience?
Wow, I'll tell you that even when my business was fairly small, if that happened, uh, the impact was pretty strong and it was hidden from me at first. And that's when I really had a wake-up call. Fortunately, I had team members that were really willing to tell me what the impact of my bottleneck was. Maybe I'd get frustrated because something didn't get scheduled in advance and a client was upset about it. And I would say, well, why didn't you do it? And they would point out to me that, oh, because I hadn't approved the particular format that they were, asking me about 3 weeks earlier. And what was happening is I was missing things because, like many leaders, my inbox was flooded. I didn't have a good system in place for tagging the most important things. Our communication was lacking a certain permission so that the people who worked for me knew that they could remind me of things and not worry about me getting annoyed or feeling pestered. There were all kinds of little systemic leadership skills that I learned in the process. One of the systemic things is to set up a system that supports me in the way I work. And one of the leadership skills was to really be self-aware enough to know where I'm strong and where I have a tendency to get overwhelmed, or which tasks, which kinds of work I do with great energy and ease and that I'm particularly good at, and which ones are really not my strength. I'm really good at vision and strategy, and I'm good at handling details, but it drains me to do it. So given a choice between doing the strategic, relational, in the work kinds of things that I'm particularly fantastic at, I will put off the details. And so that's why I had to find team members who were really good at those things and develop a sort of a base level of trust that says, look, here's a place where I can fall on my face. It's okay for you to ping me and remind me as often as you need to, and we'll set up a system so you don't need those permissions all the time. So that's a concrete example from my own business. And what it really taught me is that every leader, even the ones I've worked with that are in multinational organizations running multiple tens of billions of dollar P&Ls, even those kinds of leaders who are quite sophisticated have personal strengths and personal weaknesses as leaders. And their absolutely number one best thing to do, best piece of leverage, is to make sure that the people around them have an open line of communication with them, support them in the things that they're not especially good at, and feel really comfortable telling them the truth, even if they don't want to hear it. You're the one holding it up, or your decision is too focused on what the board thinks or shareholder value, and what we really need to be focused on is what our customers are experiencing, because that's what's going to grow the business. Like that kind of truth-telling is super important. And it only happens if the senior leader is willing to actively give permission to his or her team to do that. And then when they get that feedback that they don't like, show up with openness and receptivity, even if they don't like it. That's so much better than training an organization to route judgment upward all the time instead of being able to make their own calls because they have trust.
I completely agree. And in terms of clarity, which is really important, right? Why does lack of clarity around ownership create conflicting actions across teams? What do you think on that?
Yeah. So, again, sympathy for the senior leaders at very complex, large organizations. They think that the clarity on ownership is already there almost all the time. They always think that it's there. And it is almost never there as clearly as they think. A lot of different reasons. Some of them are just human reasons. We think we are communicating clearly, but there are still ways to interpret what we say differently than the way we mean it. And that is just a feature of the imperfectness of human communication. So there's that. There's also that we clarify things as much as we think to at the time. And then we often think, well, I've already done that. I don't need to go back and re-clarify it. But for example, I'm working with a pretty large organization right now that has international interests, and there's the CEO and the COO and the CFO and all the C people. And they've just now put a new person in place that they thought they were clear about what that person was going to cover. And I'm coaching that particular new leader right now on leadership decision architecture and on the decision advisory and leadership advisory issues. But we also often get into, well, I'm not really sure if I'm supposed to do this or not supposed to do that. And I know, because I've been working with this organization for years and the senior team, that they thought they had defined it already. So now this person, this new C-level executive in charge of innovation, so CIO, that's innovation in this case, has to be empowered and artful in approaching his new boss on clarifying decision making and clarifying locus of control and clarifying authority. And when it's not there, everything falls apart really quickly, and also in a way that's somewhat hidden from the line of sight of the senior leader. And that's when messes begin. And when they take root, they fester and they grow. And then years down the line, the organization isn't functioning effectively and nobody really knows why. And they blame, well, this team is cranky and that team doesn't want to do work. And they come up with all kinds of stories about why it's the way it is, when really, at the very most senior level, clarity about who gets to do what and a repetition, the ability to iterate and revisit the clarity issue until you see the organization functioning effectively, that's a real key skill set.
Exactly. In saying that, Lisa, we got to run into another big break. But when we come back, we'll discuss decision architecture and execution and how that directly impacts your organization. So me and Lisa will see you after this quick break. As a coach or a consultant, your focus should be on transforming lives, not struggling to get clients. That's where my company Amplify Media comes in to help you not just scale your business, but to consistently give you the revenue that your business deserves. We actually build a done-for-you lead generation acquisition system that brings in clients consistently so that you don't have to worry about where the next client is coming in. You focus on the most important thing that is scaling your business and impacting your own coaching clients. From high impact marketing and scroll-stopping content to expert funnel creation, we take your business from point A to point B with precision. Coaches and consultants worldwide trust the company. We have over 277 plus clients, case studies all around the world, help tons and tons of businesses scale. So your next level is waiting. Let's make your brand unforgettable and visit the website today. I would love to offer you a free strategy session to share with you how we can help scale your business. Thank you. So hello everyone, welcome back to the Empower Entrepreneur TV show. This is your host Rohit, and I'll get my guest again on the screen. Lisa. So, Lisa, before we go deeper into the episode, I would like to know a little bit more about your service. You can share with our viewers and also share how your new programs are helping them. So, yeah, the stage is yours, and we'll drop all the links to connect with Lisa in the chat.
Well, thank you. So, you mentioned leadership decision architecture. So, I use a combination of very concrete, very structured, sort of consulting style questionnaires and processes and assessments to identify what the decision architecture really is. And what we're looking for are three things. Is the chain of decision making around execution of whatever the key issue at play is. In one case, it might be we're changing the job description of somebody who's been in the organization for a long time, and that now means that the function's going to be divided between 5 different people. And so now this part of the function goes to person A and that part goes to person B, for example. And if that's the decision and that's the execution, then the decision architecture framework is going to identify whether the people involved have mapped it out adequately so that the people on the front lines can actually execute according to the intention. So that's what it might look like. It'll be an assessment about how does it hit the most core value-producing aspect of the organization? How does it hit the people who are most likely to resist? How does it hit the people who are least likely to resist? And what happens in between? And where are the question marks that we need to keep an eye on? So that's the first assessment phase. But then what we get into is really where the friction shows up even when the architecture has been defined well. And that looks like a communication issue, for example. It might look like a person who's resisting a change because they think that something is going to impact them negatively professionally. It might look like being strategic about how to navigate resistance that's anticipated from the board or from a competing part of the organization or what have you. When I look at the PE-backed companies, very often the CEO, who I develop quite trusting relationships with, will have questions about how do we communicate this new strategic reason, the reason for the new strategy and the strategic plan to the advisory and investor board that we have. When I'm working with the investor board and they want a new strategy, the question is often, how do we frame this new strategy so that we keep our founder CEO from losing confidence, for example. So there are all kinds of things that spill out of the leadership decision architecture. And, just to be clear, what we see is that when this process is followed, I've seen one organization I worked with transform more than 20 systems and increase their EBITDA to more than 40% and grow their measured enterprise value, measured at sale, in the amount of over $600 million in the course of 2.5 years. And it's just extraordinarily effective. So that's what the leadership decision architecture framework is all about.
Awesome. And to everyone who's watching, I want to make sure you click everything that I'm sharing, the website and the LinkedIn, just to connect with Lisa and learn more about her services. Or you can also book a call. You can get an option on LinkedIn about the same. In saying that, going back to what we were discussing, Lisa, we talk about decision architecture and execution, right? What structures need to be in place so people make the same trade-offs under pressure?
Oh, that's such a great question. So the structures need to be really robust around communication and around feedback loops. So first of all, the decision rights need to be very clear, and those are going to have to be clarified in an iterated way over time, almost always. Then when there is a trade-off that's surfacing, there needs to be room for even a senior leader most senior leaders that I work with, that I've met, they all feel like I shouldn't have to ask my boss. He's told me to execute this. I shouldn't have to go back to him and tell him, well, when I execute this new plan, do you want me to give up this thing or that thing? They feel like they shouldn't have to be asking that question. And yet there needs to be an explicit expectation that kind of feedback loop will get handled. And it might be 5-minute stand-up meetings twice a week, or it could be, a 20-minute stand-up once a week. It depends on the speed of execution in your organization. So first is clarity on decision rights. Second is going to be the feedback loop has to be given real permission, and then the ability to make decisions about what the trade-offs are in collaboration with the senior team that's determining strategy, that needs to be in place as well.
Awesome. And in saying that, Lisa, we have to run into our last break. But guys, when we come back, we'll have a very fun rapid fire with Lisa. So we'll see you after this quick break. As a coach or a consultant, your focus should be on transforming lives, not struggling to get clients. That's where my company Amplify Media comes in to help you not just scale your business, but to consistently give you the revenue that your business deserves. We actually build a done-for-you lead generation acquisition system that brings in clients consistently so that you don't have to worry about where the next client is coming in. You focus on the most important thing that is scaling your business and impacting your own coaching clients. From high-impact marketing and scroll-stopping content to expert funnel creation, we take your business from point A to point B with precision. Coaches and consultants worldwide trust the company. We have over 277 plus clients, case studies all around the world, help tons and tons of businesses scale. So your next level is waiting. Let's make your brand unforgettable and visit the website today. I would love to offer you a free strategy session to share with you how we can help scale your business. Thank you. So hello everyone, welcome back to the Empowered Entrepreneur TV show. This is your host Rohit Soni, and I'll get my guests on the stage again for the last very fun round of rapid fire. So Lisa, are you ready?
I am.
Awesome. One sign your organization has a follow-through problem.
Oh gosh. The same conversations keep happening over and over again, but behavior stays the same.
Okay. One mistake leaders make after making a decision.
Oh, they assume that the agreement in the meeting means that everyone in the organization is going to make the trade-offs that they expect them to later when they're under pressure.
One myth about alignment.
Agreement in the meeting doesn't mean alignment in execution. It just doesn't.
One thing technology can't fix.
Unclear ownership. You can have the best systems in the world. In fact, AI systems really amplify the way ownership is unclear. And so unclear ownership or decision rights.
One word that defines strong leadership judgment.
Discernment. I think it's discernment. I almost said courage, but discernment comes first. You have to see clearly before you can act clearly and courageously.
And lastly, what does being an empowered entrepreneur mean to Lisa Hale?
I think it means being able to make hard decisions cleanly and clearly, to stay accountable for the consequences and to keep operating even when certainty isn't available, because we certainly are living in a world of uncertainty and change. So knowing what you can control and knowing what you can't and owning that clearly.
Awesome. Okay, Lisa, this has been a pleasure, right? Having you as a guest on our show, for the wisdom that you have shared with us. On top of that, the strategies that you have shared and the unparalleled exact advice that most people lead in terms of leadership, mindset growth, and in top executive level, right? So in saying that, we have to go off air, but that doesn't mean everyone else goes off air. You got to keep on keeping on, just like me and Lisa on the back end, and make sure you make your dreams come true. You go to the extra next step. And on top of that, you make notes of what we have discussed, because someone who you know or yourself might need what Lisa shared. So we'll share all the details to connect with her after this episode if you want to. So I'll see everyone in the next episode, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, every Thursday. I'll see you then. Success isn't for the chosen few. It's for those who choose to show up, take action, and never back down. This is the Empower Entrepreneur, hosted by Rohit Soni, airing across 185 countries, 26 plus TV networks, and 100 plus podcast stations. You've heard the strategies, you've seen the mindset. Now it's time to execute. I'll see you next week, every Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern. Go, build, dominate. Until next time, stay empowered.